Welcome back to Time and Again as we visit with Elton John over the years by way of the NBC News archives. Elton John has been a star in the pop music firmament since 1970 when he was 23 years old. Now past 50, he's performed for millions of people around the world in his long career, perhaps most memorably at the September 1997 funeral of his friend Diana, Princess of Wales. NBC's Bob Costas spoke at length with Elton John for Today in September 1995.
I'm still standing. After all these years, it's true. How come? Why are you still standing professionally?
Well, I love what I do. I'm a very driven person, and I think when I went through that whole time when I was using drugs and not being particularly good to myself, the only constant in my life has been that even when I was going through that period, I still made records and I still performed. If I hadn't have done that, maybe I wouldn't be here today, but from a young kid, music's been my friend. It's been the thing that I related to most, and it's been the thing, and it's been the whole constant in my life. During the ups and downs, there's always been music.
If I was a skeleton, then again, no. Or a man who makes potions in a traveling show. I know it's not much, but it's the best I can do. My gift is my song, yeah, and this one's for you. You can tell everybody this is your song. It may be quite simple, but now that it's done.
Here's a quote. I'd be surprised if someone hasn't brought it up to you before. From an interview in 1976, almost 20 years ago now. I don't want to become a pathetic rock and roller and take a slow climb down like a lot of people do, so I won't be doing Crocodile Rock in 6 years' time. I don't want to be Chuck Berry. When I'm 40, I don't want to be charging around the countryside doing concerts. Here we are.
Me and my big mouth, right?
As I said on the first night, it's always great to come back to this area.
Rock and roll, per se, is a young man's business, and it still is. I mean, all the young bands that are happening now, good luck to them. And it's, I don't consider myself a rock and roll artist. I mean, we play rock and roll on stage, but I basically now, I consider myself as a singer-songwriter who plays the piano, which is probably what I've always been. But if I gave up playing music, it would be like, for me, kind of having to, I don't know, it would be like losing an arm or something. You can make records, you can write songs, and they're very enjoyable processes sometimes. But playing live to people and having that contact and that love between the artist and its audience is irreplaceable.
How much did the wardrobe and the glasses and the clowning on stage obscure the quality of your music, at least for critics, and, you know, deny you some critical acclaim that you might have received earlier?
I was critically acclaimed at the start, even though the clothes in the first 5 years were instinctive. They were funny. Towards the end, you know, when I wasn't so happy, they were just, oh, what can we do on the next tour? And they got ridiculous and too over the top. I didn't know when to stop. It was a bit like the drugs, really. I didn't know how to stop the clothes, and it got ridiculous. And I looked ridiculous. And the more weight I put on, the more clothes I put on to hide it. And I still looked kind of like a walking circus tent. Yeah, I did. I carried on much too long. It's one of my biggest faults, not knowing when to stop.
The piano's not the primary instrument in rock and roll, the guitar is, but there are a lot of piano influences in rock and roll and in R&B. What were the most important ones for you?
The things that changed my life, obviously, was Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Fats Domino, and Ray Charles. I mean, all British bands played American songs.
Come on, baby, I'm
Jerry Lee Lewis is an extremely talented piano player. He's a really great piano player. Little Richard is more of a vampire, and that's how I was. That's who I wanted to copy. I loved his voice. I loved the outrageousness of it. I love both of them. I mean, Jerry Lee Lewis would kick the stool over, and they were like manna from heaven for me.
The news with Brian Williams.
The stories and people making headlines.
We continue now with Elton John, interviewed by NBC's Bob Costas in September 1995.
You have as much energy as you had when you were 23, but much more than you had when you were 42 or 43. Right? I mean, you look like a different person. Your energy is different. You came out of a very dark period.
Yeah. That dark period lasted for 16 years. And towards the end, it was very dark.
I've been so many places in my life and times. I've seen a lot of things. I'll have some bad rides.
I only started taking drugs because I thought, well, all my life I've been kind of on the verge of the in crowd. At school I was on the verge of the gang. I'll join in and be a big man. And as a result, at the end of those 16 years, I was extremely sad. I'd lost my soul. I'd lost my self-respect. And all I can say to people out there who think that they're on the fringe and think that they're missing out on something, my advice to them would be, you're not missing out on anything.
Was there some epiphany? That's the way people like to imagine it, where you say, I see now, I better stop. Or was it just a gradual process and it ground to a halt and you said, I just can't anymore?
My change in thought was the Ryan White family and Ryan himself. And I went to his funeral, I played at his funeral. And if you look at videotape and you go back into your vaults and you see me playing at the funeral, I'm huge. I'm white hair, overweight, sad, vacuous. And I spent that week in Indianapolis with Jeannie White, Andrea White, and Ryan when he was dying. And I got touched.
To laugh and cry, to live and die in the brightness of my day.
It wasn't long after the Ryan White funeral, in time, that I decided, yes, this is, I've got to do this. I went to a confrontation between the person I was in the relationship with, and I admitted that I made a mistake and I needed help. As soon as I said I needed help, I came back to life, spiritually. And I knew I would get well because I said those 3 magic words.
Towards the dreams you left so very far behind.
Another outgrowth of that, of course, is the Elton John AIDS Foundation.
It's the least I can do, and it's a worthwhile thing for me to do. It also takes me out of being Elton John for a time, and there's not a day goes by when I don't phone England or America about the AIDS Foundation and what we're doing, what we're going to do. And it gets me away from being so self-obsessed.
This fire beneath my skin, I can't believe you love me.
A pop star as big as Elton John can't last without continually finding new fans. In 1994, he did it with a hit song in the Disney film, The Lion King. The song, Can You Feel the Love Tonight, won Elton an Oscar.
The song that got the Oscar from The Lion King almost didn't even make the record, didn't make the movie, right?
Yes, exactly. They came down to Atlanta when it was about 80% animated and showed me the newest cut. And they'd left Can You Feel the Love out because they didn't really know how to position it in the movie. And they said after, have you got any thoughts? And I said, well, God, you know, you've left the love song out. How can you do that? It's a Disney movie. And to their credit, they went back and talked and they said, you're right, we just got to figure out how to put it in the film better. and which they did, and it won an Oscar.
25 straight years with at least one, usually more, but at least one hit in the top 40, 25 straight years. That breaks Elvis's record. A lot of people, the muse visits for a while and then disappears. What's different about you, do you think?
Well, I've had the same relationship with my songwriting partner, Bernie Taupin, for 28 years. I think we've been one of the most successful teams, songwriting teams. Sometimes those teams break up, like Bacharach David and some of the greats, Lennon McCartney, and they don't seem to stay together. We've stayed together, and, you know, I don't write the words to my songs, so I'm just really the music man.
It's time now in the program to introduce my partner and lyric writer, Bernie Taupin. He's probably more important than me when it comes to writing the songs, because he has to write the words before I write the music. So can I have a warm hand, please, for Bernie Taupin?
If you don't write your own lyrics, how do you personalize a song? How do you make it your own?
It's weird because Bernie and I don't write in the same room. We don't collaborate. We have this kind of instinctive kind of thing. When he gives me a lyric, I know whether it's going to be quick, slow, fast, medium tempo, whatever. I try and envisage what Bernie wants, and I try and give him the best set of music that the lyrics deserve. And from then on, I see Bernie just sits back and writes the lyrics and then stays home. I go out and I sing these songs. And so they kind of become my songs in a way, and people tend to think that I've written the whole lot.
Live on wells and warm like a crown. Because the child Jesus got the lights for name, and they sent them to the finest school in town.
Do you ever have a melody that's knocking around, no lyric yet, or does the melody always postdate the lyric?
I don't write until I go into the studio. I don't sit at home and play the piano, because that's the last thing I want to do. I'm on the road so often, I don't go home and play the piano. I don't have melodies going around in my head. I don't write very often, so by the time I'm ready to write, I'm really looking forward to it. I don't write every day. It's not a routine process.
See, the layperson thinks that at least occasionally a person like you has a melody just waft into his head, the muse visits, and there it is.
No, that's never been the case. I've never, ever had a melody come into my head. It's weird, but it's, I look at the lyric, and then I can, when you see a lyric, it kind of, and you read it as a whole, you can visualize what what type of song it's going to be, and it's kind of like a mini play or something, and for me, it's far more interesting to work like that.
There's one here that I've sort of done the other day called Tiny Dancer, which is about Bernie's girlfriend. Yeah, when you look at it, the words, blue jean baby, LA lady, seamstress of the band, pretty-eyed pirate smile, you marry a music man, ballerina. As soon as you get to the word ballerina, you know it's not going to be fast. It's got to be sort of gentle and sort of quite slow. It sort of starts off, blue jean baby, LA lady, seamstress for the band.
What's the best night you ever had on stage?
Oh, I think one of the most memorable nights was when Lennon came out at Madison Square Garden. We persuaded him to come on stage and do 3 songs, and he was white with fright at the beginning of the show and be backstage. It was the night that Yoko came and they got back together again. And so that was a very memorable. I always thought, I've never heard a reception for anybody in my life that Lennon got that night. I still get chills thinking about it. When I announced his name and he came on and sang, it must have been 10 minutes of applause.
It's our great privilege and your great privilege to see and hear Mr. John Lennon. She was just 17, and you know what I mean. And the way she looked was way beyond the
Madison Square Garden is one of the prized places to play in the world. I mean, it's just got an atmosphere about it. And that night, when he came out, it was great for him. It showed him how much people loved him, and it showed us that, you know, God, you're playing with a real legend here, and you know, we couldn't believe our luck.
I'd like to thank Elton and the boys for having me on tonight.
I never think of John being dead, and God, I wish he wasn't. If he was still alive today, he'd be still cutting edge.
What do you feel, if you can sense it accurately at all, what do you feel coming back from an audience now when you play live? And is it any different than what you felt coming back 15 years ago?
One of the things that I've never been able to be very good at in my life is accepting love. I've always wanted it. And accepting it, I've always been embarrassed about it, and I've always thought I didn't deserve it. Now I've gotten sober and I've learned a lot more about myself, and I've changed a lot. I say at the end of the show, listen, thank you for all the love you've given me over the years. It now really means a lot to me.